So in this piece, we're just going to look at some of the professional learning opportunities that are out there, and very briefly, get you into the Google Classroom. The Google Classroom is going to be specifically around us as a secondary group. So I'm going to show you where some resources and things are in there for you. We're going to look at that problem of practice, and then we have the survey and the reflection and communication that we're going to work through. So I went through this very quickly this morning, so I just want to take an extra second here to just speak of, I keep mentioning the systems thing, and some of you might be thinking, all right, what does he mean by that? So here in Kent, and overall, and I know Sparta is a partnering district, I know Greenville does MTSS, and I'm not sure if others do. But what we see ourselves as here at the ISD is, and the way we've done it is that I am actually partnering directly with two of our districts, so Lowell and TK. And so what I do is I meet with a district level team. So I'm trying to infuse in Literacy Coaching Network that us as the ISD lead team, so myself, the early literacy coaches, and Kirsten, are providing you with information that you might need as LCN representatives. And some of you have that modeled here, right? So we've got curriculum directors or principals with your team, and that's awesome from my vantage point, right? Because you've got leadership here, which is a huge component to hear the message, to hear it, and what it looks like going forward. And so we want to be able to share this information for you to take that information, contextualize it, and then share it down to your school level teams and or grade levels, right? So wherever you're fitting in here, you're communicating down. But the key is, how are we getting the communication back? Unfortunately, I can't go too deeply into that in LCN. It's enough of a struggle, even from my own vantage point in my own organization, to communicate down the levels of information as they need to be shared. But it's really good to keep in consideration that feedback up. And that's what we want from all of you participating. So I'm trying to model getting that feedback. That's why we have the survey that we'll be completing here in this closing session. And that's why that survey information is so valuable to us. So there's a feeding down process of information, and then there's also the feed up overall. So that's what this looks like in my brain and what we're trying to model in the Literacy Coaching Network. So if you wondered when I keep talking about systems and all this stuff, I see it as like information being communicated down levels and up levels, right? And then above me would be the state. So how am I taking information from the state and assimilating that to share down to all of you? If you go to this link, and again, it will be in the PowerPoint in that last Google slide show, it will have the professional learning opportunities here. I'm just going to jump out to it quickly so that you can see that it exists. It's got the LCN meetings. Looks like they did add in some cognitive coaching pieces along. So there are these other pieces that are in here. All right, very nice. So then there's also reading and writing options and other pieces. So you can look through that. But if anything professional learning from Kent ISD, what I do is I send the link to this Google Doc out to all the folks, science, social studies, which is myself, math and otherwise, and get all that stuff populated into one spot. So if you're wondering what's up with Kent ISD and professional learning, you can get to it in here. You can also go to kentisd.org, of course. But we try to make it more applicable and put context to it here with you. All right. So the Google Classroom. We have this year, instead of putting that implementation guide into the other Google Classrooms, we have another Google Classroom. So you're going to have 3. That's the bad news. The good news is you only have one implementation plan. Yay! All right. So secondary collective group closure. SOF5XCC. Put that up here. That's where you can get to the PowerPoint and other things. SOF, the number 5, and then XCC. All right. Okay. So once you get into that classroom, I'm going to jump out, I think. So once you get into the classroom, and it's important to get into the classroom at this point because you want to get the PowerPoint, because that's how I'm going to have you get to the survey. But once you get into the secondary collective group closure, you're going to see what we've put in here is the articles. So all 4 of those articles are available in print on your way out if you want to grab them printed. If you didn't want to grab them printed to save paper, then they are in here electronically. And then someone asked, well, there's the protocol as well. And then someone asked about, from our fake news conversation, well, if all of us are in this fake news conversation, we want to start sharing resources, why not? So I created a Google Doc so that we could start putting in, oh, I got to change the properties on that, I bet. Anyway, I put a Google Doc in here that you can go to, and you can start adding in Google Doc resources that you might be using with your group. So I do know that some of you are completing the survey still, but and I feel like this might have been gone about the wrong way, so I'll restructure for next time. But I don't, and I understand if you have to leave, you have to leave. But I want to make sure that the problem of practice, and so like the implementation guide, in the classroom there's a problem of practice. And so it isn't the same, there is differences to it. So the key piece around it, and I'll do this very quickly, and so just take it as a consideration. We're trying to go from the environment of LCN to your overall learning, to your session learning, to now the actual problem of practice, right? Mm-hmm. And so in order to get to that point, we're using this idea. We want you to define what you're going to take forward with your ideas, try it out, test it, see how it goes, and cycle back around. And so in that same Google form, there's the problem of practice. So if you're in that secondary classroom under classwork, it's problem of practice. And then once you pull that up, then it will have those fields in there for you to consider. Okay. I think what I'll do, since our group thinned out, is I'm going to revisit this in our opening next time, just to kind of revisit it, understanding the nature of it. But if I can set the stage for it then at that point, then we can kind of catch up from there. But the idea of it is that in a pretty straightforward way, I would say, we're just trying to grab what you're taking from the network here, going back and applying it, and then what you're finding. So it's like your own action research. And so then what that does for me is that it shows what are the actual things that you're taking from it. It's one thing to reflect, to inform you for next time, but it's another thing for me to see the ideas, the actual information you're pulling, because then I can help you in a more conversational way, right? Even if I'm not there in your classroom. And we can go back and forth on, hey, I noticed you said this or that, but what about that? So, and I know I did that with some of you more intensely than others, but I'll revisit the whole problem practice thing next time, just to kind of reset the stage for that, since I probably shouldn't have done the survey first, I guess. But anyway, but I understand we've got longer distances and things like that. And once it's in place, this then really just becomes a work time for that anyway. So if you were still interested in delving into the problem practice and wanted to stick around, I'm here till 3 o'clock. I can support you in that. But then if you were headed out, thanks for doing the survey and providing that feedback. And we'll touch on problem practice to lead off next time.